like to give each of the panelists a second to introduce themselves, introduce their company, and maybe take 2 minutes each, and then I'll pull the shepherd's hook on you, and then we'll get into the question and Q&A, if that sounds good. We'll start here with Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Tom Siga. I'm the president and partner of Duluth Pack, the oldest canvas and leather pack and bag maker in the United States of America. Our 136th year of continuous business out of Duluth here. Very proud of that, and then having Duluth in our name. We have some very interesting perspectives because we started as a canoe pack company and have evolved from very loyal customers over the years to have a product offering of 300 different products in 13 different colors of canvas, 5 leather options, and a bunch of wool options. So the SKU number is very high of the product, and it's very interesting, and I hope to be able to speak to it a little bit of how we've had to evolve as well with some of the statistics you see with the younger generation and also the older generation through the outdoors and the canoe industry.
Thank you, Tom. That's how many years?
136.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
So my name is Mark Norquist, and I'm the founder of Modern Carnivore, not nearly as old as Tom's company. Modern Carnivore is a lifestyle brand, and what we say is our mission is to awaken the hunter that's within all of us and connect more people to the natural food system that is hunting, fishing, and foraging. And as was mentioned earlier, John mentioned there's been a decline over the last 30 years in our country of the tradition of hunting, fishing, and foraging. As we've had a migration to more urban environments, there's been a loss of a lot of that tradition. And so what we do is as a lifestyle brand is use media, storytelling, and other events and things like that to reintroduce people to these activities and get them comfortable with it. Moving people beyond the old phrasing of the non-hunters and hunters to the not yet hunters and hunters, because everybody's got that within them. So.
Hi, I'm Claire Shirley. I'm from Sawbill Canoe Outfitters. I'm a third generation owner at Sawbill. My grandparents, Frank and Mary Alice Hansen, founded it in 1957, before wilderness was a thing. So thanks to them for that. They ran it for about 30 years. My parents ran it for about 30 years after that, and then my husband and I bought it 3 years ago. So this is our 62nd year in business. We outfit people to go on canoe trips in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. We also manage a couple of national forest campgrounds in conjunction with the Forest Service. So we do a lot of packing people up, teaching them how to paddle, sending them out on trips. We do almost exclusively canoe outfitting, no kayaks or anything like that. So we are located right on the edge of a Boundary Waters lake, Sawbill Lake. It's just north of Tofte. So we're kind of in between Ely and the Gunflint on the southern edge of the Boundary Waters.
Hi, I'm Dean Cassad. I'm with Winnebago Industries, and we make RVs and trailers. We've got facilities. Most of our RVs are built in Forest City, Iowa, but we've got facilities in Elkhart, Indiana, and also in Junction City, Oregon, where we build some of our larger units. And we've got an executive office in Eden Prairie, too, which is fairly new for us. I've been with Winnebago for about a year, and my job is I'm in charge of customer support. And for us, our customers are twofold. One, it's the owners of our equipment that we build, our RVs and our trailers, and then also our dealers, which are our marketing channel. So I'm in charge of training and technical support for our dealers, as well as our warranty administration, and also owner relations for our owners. We've been in business for 60 years. In fact, this is our 60th year anniversary, and we're probably the best known brand in RVs, and we're really in the midst of a transformation. We've got some new management, and we're really trying to take what's an old established brand and make it into something new for the industry.
Hi, Josh Smith. I'm the technical co-founder of Evan Tier, so it's pronounced Evan Tier. It's the Old Norse word for adventure. We're a technology platform, we're a software company, and we like to say that we're the Etsy for outdoor adventure. So Etsy specifically being owner-operator, so as far as tour companies and things like that, we prefer to focus on individuals, owner-operator individuals, that are sort of real, genuine stories. So the genesis of our company, there's 3 co-founders. It's a group of guys that love the outdoors, specifically, the mentorship aspect of it. Being able to find somebody that you can connect with and get access to a specific category that you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity. So I'm sort of that person that got the chance to meet my co-founders and have access to, in our case, bow hunting is my specific category, and we're thankful to be here, and I have one of our other co-founders here, Dan, to share this with.
What is the single most dramatic change you've seen in your business, and either since you've been in it or since you started? The single most dramatic change you've seen, and I'd love everybody to give your thoughts on that. We'll start with you, Josh.
Yeah, I think, obviously I'm going to talk about it from a technology standpoint, and we're .com, iOS, and Android apps from a technology standpoint. But I think it's the expectation of access. It's the expectation of a younger audience. We'll pick on the millennials, as we always do.
They're fair game. It's okay.
Yeah, they deserve it. No, that they have an expectation that technology should be super easy to use. That this attention span of 5 to 7 seconds, or whatever the statistics are, where you jump into a website or an app, that it should do exactly what they want it to do, the user wants it to do instantly. And so from an outdoor standpoint, that is a challenge, because some of these categories that we focus in are highly specialized. So it's a skill set thing. So what we face is essentially 2 different roles in the platform. We have guests, and that's the consumer side of it, and we have hosts, or the guides. And there's different expectations on both sides. And we're dealing with a really interesting dynamic where you've got, probably on the consumer side, the guest side, you've got sort of that millennial crowd that's very sophisticated in the use of technology. Their expectation is extremely high. And then the contrast, which you've quoted some numbers earlier, on the host side, or the guide side, that's an aging population. And they might not even be using technology at all. And so their ability to hit the website, to understand what the value proposition is, or our ability to communicate it for that matter, and then wield the technology all in the span of 5 to 7 minutes or 10 minutes is what we're dealing with. So we call that user experience. And the challenge with I would say any digital marketplace is you've got this paradigm of the consumers and the providers. And usually they're pretty different. So if you pick on Etsy, a lot of the crafts people in Etsy are international. So you could have a middle-aged woman in Vietnam making leather goods. And whatever that person's expectation of a technology from a user experience standpoint is, contrast that with the buyer side from somebody that's in Duluth expecting to buy that product. So the user experience is very, very difficult challenge for us to. Yeah.
Dean.
For us, from a business standpoint, Winnebago 3 years ago was over 90% motorized. We split our business into motorized and towables, or trailers. And through acquisition and through growth of our trailer business, we're approaching a 50-50 split between motorized motorhomes and trailers. So from a business standpoint, that's been the biggest change that we've had in the past several years. From a user and a market standpoint, I think the biggest change, or at least one of the biggest, is a movement of our users from being really focused on RVing as their activity, so kind of the traditional RVer, retiree buys an RV, travels around and kind of hangs out with other RVers, to our buyers are becoming much more activity focused. So instead of buying an RV to RV, they're buying an RV to take part in their other activities, whether it's kayaking or biking or other outdoor activities. So that's kind of a shift we're seeing in more purpose-driven, I guess, vehicles, and how do we make vehicles that are supporting a lifestyle as opposed to being a lifestyle.
So my family has had the opportunity to watch the canoe industry kind of grow and change over the last 62 years. So I actually spoke with my folks this morning about this question, and they were commenting that the biggest change that they felt they've seen, and I think this holds true too, is the length of time that people are visiting the wilderness for. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, when backpacking and canoe camping was really taking off, people were going on long, 7-10 day canoe trips and getting, way back in there. Into the wilderness. And now anymore people are coming up and going on 3 or 4 day trips. It's more of a long weekend. I think part of that is we see a lot of families. It's gone away from being groups of men going out together to a lot of people bringing their young families with. And so things like sports schedules and summer schools and things like that get in the way of doing these longer trips. So we now have a lot more turnover in our gear and turnover in the number of people that we're helping, but they're going out for much shorter periods of time, which just sort of changes the way that we interact with those customers. And we have to be a little bit faster about our turnaround with what we have at our place. And we see a lot more people too that are just base camping, that come and just want to stay in the campground that we have on site and day trip into the wilderness and then come back and still have access to a shower house and Wi-Fi and ice cream for the kids. And so there's sort of these different layers of wilderness, if you will, and people are staying in sort of the outer 2 layers and sort of, venturing in for a day or two here and there. But the days of really long, week-long trips are dwindling, it seems like.
That's great. Shower house, Wi-Fi, and ice cream for the kids. I think that's a new Winnebago model coming out.
I'd like to do Ferris wheel next.
Yeah.
As far as the biggest, most dramatic change, I think in the context of the overall decline that John mentioned earlier, 1982 was the height of participation in hunting. Just under 17 million U.S. citizens were partaking. That has dropped to the most recent figure that came out just a few months ago from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife was 11.5 million. And a big part of that is due to an aging population and that increasing age of the average user. But I put it in context of that, what I have seen is something that I never thought I would see over the last couple of years, and that is people entering the world of hunting and fishing and foraging that I never thought would, and more importantly, the hunting side of things. People who grew up in an urban environment with no connection to wild places, who come from a background that's about as different from a traditional hunter as you could ever imagine, that as an adult, raised their hand and said, I want to try this out. And what's needed and what we do is really take them through that process and again try to simplify that so that they can enter this world of hunting, fishing that is so foreign to them. And if I think about one gentleman that we actually have on as part of a film that will be released this summer, his the most interesting part of that process for him was the actual processing and skinning and butchering of an animal, which I would have never have guessed. And this person was so different from the background of someone who had ever hunted. So I think we get surprised every day, and I think as things change, we need to set aside assumptions of what we think people are going to like and not like, and things are changing rapidly, and I find that exciting. I think in the midst of challenges, there's great opportunity.
I just heard the other day that Mark Zuckerberg is a deer hunter.
There you go.
Changes everything. Tom?
He probably goes to way better camps than we do as well. We hope so. So for Duluth Pack, being an old company that most of us in this room probably can touch with it on the canoe end of things, over the 11 years that I've been with the company, the Canoe Pack business is a mature business for us, because the people, as was mentioned earlier, are going on these shorter trips. So instead of buying a canoe pack, they'll rent for a 3-day trip. And especially when you're the premier, the top end line of pack that they could buy for the trip versus the people that were going for a 10-day trip or a 2-day trip, and they would do that multiple times a year. So one of the things we looked at right away when we came to the company was, we hear a lot from our customer base that I love your canoe pack, my grandpa had one, my dad had one, what else do you have? And so we just listened to our customer, and the biggest transformation we've had is going from about 75 products to about 300 products in our product line by listening to the customer. And everyone aspires to have an outdoors experience. And it doesn't matter if you live in New York City or you live in Duluth, Minnesota, people aspire to be outdoors. An example is, we've done some research, and our website sells more to New York City every day than it does the state of Minnesota. And those people are buying something that they can aspire to have something in touch and something tangible with the outdoors. And so what we try to do is, with any product launch we have, with any new product line that we come out with, is to meet the need that those people say they have, whether they're in Duluth or wherever they are around the world, that they can have that aspiring feel to be outdoorsy, to have something of high quality, to have something that's made in America. So what we've had to do is listen to our customers more than we've ever listened to them before. We've had to go from being a company that was a catalog house to doing no catalogs anymore, doing a lot of electronic means versus through social media, through a website, through email blast. We have a dealer network globally now, which we never had before, in our private label business. People love high quality made in America products, and they want to get their hands on it. And people like the business people in this audience are going, hey, we'd love to have some gifting or something like that, and that's been a growing part as well. So it's really listening to the customer on what their needs are, and listening to the new generation, the millennials, because they're pretty smart people, and they're going to do different types of purchases, and they're going to do business differently than I have or I ever will.
How are you adapting in the next 2 years that you see coming as you look down the road? What is the biggest adaptation you're going to change in your business model, or you feel the need to change based on some of the changes you're talking about right now?
We're actually in the midst of it. It's a great question. We're in the midst of that right now. And we're putting a tremendous amount of our efforts into our dealer network and what we call our corporate business, which I just hit on at the end of the last question. Our website, it's doing great. It continues to grow. We have one flagship store, which is a place for people to go and have fun and hopefully first touch for people if they do come to Duluth. But we sell to all 7 continents, including Antarctica. So people there are not going to have a touch with a Duluth Pack store here. And with that, we need other means to touch those customers. So we have a dealer network that we're all over the world now. We have a distributor in Japan. We have one in Europe. And that continues to grow, and we can be in more and more shops like the Duluth Pack store or boutiques. We don't go after the big box stores, things like that. But it's another touch point with people who are looking for quality products. So that's really a transformation that we're going through, as well as our corporate business, because what we're finding is, as companies are strong coming out of the economic times we were just in, there's a lot of gifting going on corporately right now. And so we've listened to those customers who had already been customers of ours and said, I'd love to put my logo on this bag. And so those 2 areas are probably our biggest growth areas that we have and we will have in the next few years going forward.
That's great. We're going to go a little bit long with these questions, but they're good questions, so I'm just going to keep going, just letting you know we got plenty of time. People walk away, that's okay. So, Mark, next 2 years. Give us the crystal ball.
So one of the things that we're doing is looking at how we can scale events that are for first-timers. So we do something called the Modern Carnivore Experience, which is a half-day event. Works really well in the metro area. And looking at how we can bring that out and tap into really the foodie market, the locavore market, et cetera, to use those terms that get overused a lot. But it's really people who are concerned about where their food's coming from. And we see a lot of success with that type of a demographic. What we find, though, is that they really need to have a place and a venue where they can ask the questions that they've never been able to ask before. They may have tried venison in the past when Uncle Larry would cook it, but they couldn't tell Uncle Larry it tasted horrible, let alone how do you get into hunting. And so we create an environment where people can ask those questions in a non-threatening environment. They can actually try some amazing wild game. which we always end these events with a wild game meal. And it's always fun to hear people's reactions and go, wow, I never realized wild game tasted like that, and understand what a great experience that can be. So I think we're going to be doing more of that, and again, as we see the trend to greater urbanization, which we don't see that slowing down at all, how do we tap into that market space within those dense urban environments?
So Sawbill's been doing pretty much the same thing for the last 62 years very successfully. So our business plan for the next 2 years is to not mess that up. That's the real goal. That being said, I think I am technically a millennial. So there are a few things that we've done already. We just launched a new website. It's got basically the same content as our old one, which was great, but it's mobile friendly, which makes a big difference. And we have started social media platforms, which Sawbill has never had in the past. We had a blog on our website that's been going for 25 years, but we never had like a Facebook or an Instagram. So we have that now, and we put out content on those things, and it helps us to stay connected to people. A lot of our business is about that connection. We have people that come back year after year after year. I mean, I'm a third generation owner. I deal with third generation campers whose families are on their third and fourth generation coming up to Sawbill. And so being able to maintain that connection throughout the year, because we are a seasonal business, is really important. And so doing that on a number of different platforms and having different content across those platforms to reach all of those different people has been something that we have focused on and will continue to focus on. And it's not just about pushing out content every day. We try to make it meaningful, and we try to make it realistic, because we are really focused on people having a good wilderness experience. And part of that experience is rain, and part of that experience is bugs. And so we try not to oversell and underdeliver. So we are all about putting out there like what the wilderness is like, what it's all about, what you can expect when you come, and what it's like on any given day. So we try to help you have that connection, whether you're sitting at your desk in Minneapolis or New York or in Grand Marais.
Cool.
The RV business is the RV industry is a bit incestuous in that 80% or some astronomical percentage like that of all RVs in the United States are built in a county in Indiana, Elkhart, Indiana. So all the manufacturers, except for Winnebago, well, we're there now too, and all the suppliers are there. And then Winnebago itself, because it's been, its start was really in Forest City, Iowa, was also kind of very isolated. So there's really a bit of an old school mentality there. And so two of the things that we're doing to try to break that is, one, we're making some really big investments in technology now as a company to help us do a better job of understanding our owners' trends so that we can keep up with them and do a better job of sharing information across the company. And we've also hired a lot of new talent from outside the industry. So combining that with people who have good experience, we're really trying to get some new ways of looking at things rather than just the old way. And part of that is the goal is to keep up with those owners, those new owners that, like I said, are kind of shifting their mentality of what they're looking for. I'd say another thing that in my particular part of the business that I'm trying to achieve is the RV industry is very hot right now. For the past several years, we've had record sales. We're looking at record sales this year as an industry, and the infrastructure, frankly, just isn't keeping up very well. And so for me to be able to service our owners without hiring an army of people, we're really looking at technology in that way too, of how can we encourage more self-service, do things smarter across the web so that I don't have to hire a whole bunch of people to answer questions, and we can keep up with the demand that we've got.
Speaking of technology.
Yeah. So we're obviously a technology startup, so we haven't been in business for 10 years. So this question is a little different for us, but we've been around for coming up on 2 years now, and we've done pretty exhaustive beta round, and we've talked to our end users, try to get their feedback, and again, our brand, our mission is to elevate these owner-operator hosts. We want to make their lives easier. We want to tell their stories. We want to find ways to make them more money, and incremental ways to make money. And as we have learned and listened to these people over the past year or so, after we've gotten our kind of technology up, I think about how we can do that in terms of what a millennial, let's just again just pick on them from a consumer side, what stories they want out of a platform like Eventyr. So, right, so if you are a millennial and you get a chance to go on a fishing charter, maybe this afternoon as Wayne cooperates, and I get to have an experience like that, I'm going to remember my captain because he's the one shepherded me through this experience, and whatever comes about, it's largely him, right? And so any chance that I have as a customer of his to invest in him from a perception standpoint is a really positive thing. So as that's the perspective that we have on it. That's where we come from, and what we think is going to work well is trying to expose these owner-operator hosts to brands and manufacturers. Because we think there's a trend, and this is not rocket science, it's kind of all playing out in front of us, right? Where you have Cabela's and Bass Pro kind of, figuring out new ways to generate sales and so forth, and you see mergers and the pressure of Amazon and so forth, and you've got brands like Duluth Pack. You've got these great American brands that are, in some cases, specialized, highly specific by category, that people may not know about or may not have the chance or the access to touch and feel or to get out there in the field and use them. But if you get a chance to experience a product like that through a person that's unique and genuine and highly skilled that you'll remember forever, that's the experience and that's the story that I think millennials are looking for. It's not that you don't want to own things anymore, it's just that you don't want to have to buy things that you don't know how to use and don't have a place in your life for. To your point, Tom, it's somebody in Manhattan buying something with Duluth Pack. I have a Bison duffel. I travel with that. That's a cool thing for me. I've never used that in the woods, right? But every time I look at it, I think about the outdoors, and it's a connection for me. And I do have other products that I have used in outdoors. But anything that my co-founder sitting right here, Dan, tells me to use, and I get out of line sometimes. But anything he tells me to use in archery, I do, right? Because I've had these amazing experiences that have fundamentally changed my life in the woods through his mentorship and instruction. And I know all kinds of people that are my age and below, you just name the category, fly fishing, whatever, they have a mentor. They have somebody that they will follow. And what we're trying to do through technology is connect those hosts to those sponsorship opportunities. We don't think we have to figure out how those products are going to get sold or how these people are going to make commission. We're pretty sure that the people like you guys on this panel are going to figure that out. We just need to create the marketplace for it to happen.
We exist on the outdoors. If there isn't a good, healthy outdoors, we really don't have a business model. What keeps you up at night or scares you either from your own business or from the American outdoor experience in general? And we can start with the microphone, Josh. What scares you most about what's threatening that or what might diminish that? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, for me, it's Mark's mission in life down there is close to me because so what I fear the most is that we won't succeed in our mission of cracking this nut of access, of getting the average person access to these kinds of experiences, especially in some of the stuff that's more aggressive, like a 7-day canoe trip or hunting for that matter, because we while it's great that so much technology is at our fingertips and we become so digital, it also separates us in so many ways from the outdoors, things that are real. And I think, for me, my story is with Dan and the other co-founder, Craig. I've been hunting with them enough times where I've realized the simple truth that you can't go into the outdoors and command it. You can't make it what you want it to be like you can with things on your phone. If I'm working and I can't get to lunch, I can just open up Bite Squad and get sawadi delivered. It doesn't work like that in the outdoors, and that's not the real world. That's not the way it works. And when we touch those experiences in the outdoors, and we do have access, they're so earth-shattering for younger people because so much of their lives are controlled through technology, and it feels like you have all this power, but it's not. It's not how the outdoors works. And I know we've all got experiences like that. So I guess what I fear the most is that we will struggle to tell those stories and create access and sort of a new channel to them, because what a shame that a generation and maybe even more generations just won't have that chance.
It's important for people to learn that if their bear pack wasn't hung high enough, they still have to survive for the next 5 days. It's a good point. That's a good point. It's part of the adventure. Maybe it's bear send people out without food, make them forage. You know. Dean is over here.
I think what keeps me up at night is, like I mentioned, we've had in the RV industry several years of record-breaking sales. This year, we're projected to break like 500,000 units in total industry sales of RVs. And what it's really doing, I'm hearing this from several different fronts, is outstripping the resources that are out there. So people are having a hard time finding campgrounds and camp spots. And then on the service side of the business, dealers just can't keep up with the amount of service as well. So in fact, the service center that we run in Forest City, I think we're booking out until Labor Day right now. So if you wanted to get in for service on your RV, that's how long it would take, and that's not atypical. So I guess what worries me and keeps me up is, that when we sell a product, we're making a promise of the experience, and I'm worried about the experience not keeping up, and that people, buy an RV, in our particular case, and when they actually go to use it, then there isn't a place for them to use it, or they can't get the help that they need to use it well.
So that's a real threat to reputation, even though the reputation is really important. But if you can't service just out of the logistics of the business,
Right,
that's
right,
a threat.
and it's not just us, but it gets translated to our brand.
Of course, yeah, right. Claire.
This is a question that I'm pretty passionate about. I could probably talk about this all day, but I'll try to keep it short. The biggest thing that keeps me up at night is absolutely loss of access to wild places and loss of public lands. Our public lands and our wilderness areas are under major threat right now from a variety of different angles. And that is, it's tough and it's scary, but it's also a marathon and not a sprint. I mean, this is a battle that my grandparents fought in the 50s and 60s. It's a battle that my parents had to fight throughout their time as outfitters, and it's one that we are continuing to fight today. So it's something that is important to us, it's important to the next generation, it's important to our customers, but it's something that we need to be vocal about and be talking about with people, that these lands aren't just guaranteed to be there protected forever. I'm also an attorney, I'm licensed in Minnesota, so I've read the Wilderness Act and I follow along with the lawsuits and participate in some of them and do some pro bono work. I've been in DC recently in March talking with legislators and senators about the threats to our wild places and what we need to do to keep those protections in place so that people can access it, so that it's there for them to access. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how do we, get to engage people and how do we get them there, but none of that matters if there isn't a wild place for them to go visit in the first place. So that's really our biggest concern and our biggest fight, is making sure that people know how important these wild places are, whether you visit them or not. Just knowing that they exist in our world and knowing that they're out there, I think, is important for the human psyche. And it's important to your friends and your family. And it's important to the next generation too. I've got a toddler and one on the way, so this is important to me from a business standpoint, from a personal standpoint, and something that I think needs to be talked about more.
Since you advocate for it at the public level, I've read recently that a lot of people just aren't aware that these are our wild places and our wild lands. Are you seeing more evidence of, I didn't know I owned that? Love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of people that live locally up here who have never been to the Boundary Waters, or don't know the national significance. It's a really unique wilderness area. It has unique protections. It's unique in the wilderness landscape across our country. There are special protections in place in the Boundary Waters that other places don't have, like the flyover zone. You can't fly below a certain altitude in the Boundary Waters. That doesn't exist in a lot of other wilderness areas. So it is a really special and unique place. You can drink the water right out of the lakes. I don't know of anywhere else in this country or this world that you can really do that. And people aren't aware that it is something that is theirs also. Whether you're local, 5th generation from Cook County like myself, or whether you are coming to us from Utah or New Mexico, it's a national treasure. It's part of our national heritage.
I think everybody feels good there's a lawyer and an outfitter on the team
And my
protecting
husband,
our outdoors.
and my husband is a chemist, so
Oh, my goodness.
we're quite the
That's
duo.
great. Wonderful. Thank you. Mark?
Here, public lands, absolutely access. I think that's a huge deal. I'm with you on that. As a relative of mine who was up for Memorial Weekend from Texas this weekend called it, what's that Wild Lakes place up north? I think there's a lot of challenges that are out there, and I could talk for a long time on this, but I am also hopeful. I think access, as Claire mentioned, is definitely something that gives me great concern, something I'm focused on, and a lot of people I work with are also, as a fundamental principle of the work that we do. Another one I think is though I think if you look at whether it's technology or other things that are distractions, I think the statistic I heard the other day is the average kid spends 7 minutes a day outside, something like that. It's crazy. And to that end, I think it's on all of our shoulders. It's our responsibility. There's a few millennials in here like Claire, but most people are above that age. And we all need to be working together if we're going to keep this culture of outdoor experience alive. You know, maybe it is a reduced number of days. It's not a 10-day trip, it's a 3-day trip, a 4-day trip. But I think we need to keep that alive, and I am hopeful that even with where technology is going, which is a complete experiment right now, we don't know where it's going to end up. You know, what is social media? What is the amount of screen time we're putting in front of us? What is that going to do to our culture, to our psyche? I think we don't know the answer to that yet. But I am hopeful that the universal appeal of the outdoors is stronger than that, and that people will come back to it even when they get really obsessed with the technology, and that hopefully at least now the way it is can't compare to that experience you have in the outdoors. And I think anybody who's a parent here can attest to that. You go outside, you get a kid away from the screen, maybe they're kicking and screaming. My son loves his iPad. But all it takes is getting him out in a wild place, on the water, out in the woods, what have you, and he does not give it a second thought. It's just gone. And that's the only place where it's like that. In general daily routine, it's, Dad, can I have it? Dad, can I have it? You get out into wild places, in the true outdoors, and that's gone. And so that gives me hope that we'll get there. But I guess in terms of keeping me awake at night, I hope all of us, whether it's through partnerships, investment, etc., everybody works together to keep it alive in our culture and work it through so that we have capacity that works, so that people can find the places to go that are available.
From a company standpoint, the thing that would keep me up at night is how are we going to be able to keep up with some of the technologies, whether it be the social mediums, a website from a sales standpoint, or whatever comes in the future. It's changing so fast, and being a small company with limited resources, keeping up with that, because it doesn't matter whether you're a small company selling a product or a very large company like a Winnebago, you're all on the same playing field now trying to keep up with technology. And technology is not cheap, and as a small company, your resources are very limited. But from the outdoor standpoint, it's more of an anecdotal comment. I met a gentleman several years ago named John Stewart from Boy Scouts of America, and there was a presentation happening from a person from Google, and they were talking about get your kids outside, make them put away their devices, force them to go do this, and they were just, the whole conversation was around that. And John took over the whole presentation. He was out in the audience, and he said, do you mind if I make a few comments? And he said, I'm executive director of Boy Scouts of America, and he told this person, he said, I respectfully disagree with everything you just said. And I was just like, wow, and you could see everyone in the audience pushing back in their chair like they were sitting in a dentist chair, because it's like, where's he going with this? And it was kind of a wow moment. And he had mentioned that Boy Scouts of America had been on a slippery slope downhill for a long time. They made a conscious decision to start wiring places. Now, this is probably a hot button topic that I'm no expert at, but that these kids in the future of our outdoor industry, we can fight the battle and we will lose. And because these kids, as we were mentioning, it's almost a fight to get them to put their things down, but if we could get it interactive where they could use some of this along with the outdoors, we might be onto something. And his comment was, we now have to turn kids away from Boy Scouts of America because there's so many kids who want to be there because they now allow them to bring their devices. They make it interactive. They make them download apps to look at the stars at night, to download apps for plants, all of these different things. It was an amazing conversation that he had on that is our future of the outdoors, and we can either fight them and lose or listen to them because they are our future and come to a happy medium somewhere with the next generation that's going to carry all of this on.
Interesting historical perspective. Usually when you adapt, you survive. None of us are riding to work on horses anymore.
Yeah, it was an amazing presentation that really flipped over to somebody else's presentation from the audience.
That's great.
This question is more for Duluth Pack, I think, because no matter, I travel a lot, and no matter where I go, I'm always seeing your TV commercials on, you know, in Vegas or wherever I am, there's Duluth Pack shows up. I'm just wondering, who is your target market, and do you do your marketing in-house? And if so, which works better for you? Is it television? Is it social media? Is it, you know, internet? What's your marketing scheme?
There's a couple answers to that. Yes, we do all of our own marketing in-house. We do have some partners and consultants we work with. The TV commercials you're seeing are actually Duluth Trading Company.
Oh, sorry.
Which, no, that's absolutely fine. Because it's great for us because they spend a tremendous amount of money advertising. And we get one heck of a lot of business out of it. So we love it. So when you're in Vegas, you're thinking of Duluth Pack. So we couldn't have anything better. And we're actually friends with them. So it's an educational process. So it kind of goes into the whole marketing part of it, that marketing becomes an educational process. If you don't know of a brand, whether it would be Winnebago, whether it would be a platform, whether it would be a place that you can go and experience things through the outdoors, it's an educational process from a marketing standpoint. And how do we do that? Do we do it through social media? Do we do it through email blasts? Do we do it through blogs? Do we do it through TV commercials? How do you touch the most people? Because that is the key right there, is touching the most people and your target audience. And to answer that part of the question, we have so many verticals that we sell products through. It could be a canoe pack, and we have to hit that person the way they want to be hit. And then we could have a person in New York City who's looking for a nicer purse, which those two are probably never going to cross paths, but how do we connect with that person? So we have to look at every silo that we sell through and we manufacture for individually on how do we market to that individual person. And we have a bunch of really intelligent marketing people that take care of that. My job ends up being knocking down as many barriers as I can so they can do their jobs.
That answer it? Good. That was a good one. Any other questions from the audience? Anybody else have a thought or a quip? Okay, well, I really pushed it here. I went almost a half hour over, but I'd like to give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you very much for taking the time today. You guys all did a good job. So, thanks, Tom. Absolutely. And Jesse's going to take over, but thank you guys. Thank you very much. There you go.
Thank you again so much for coming, guys, taking a valuable part of your day and adding a lot of value to us. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody here for coming and supporting Club E. Again, I want to remind you that we are going to be having our next session on June 19th. So it'll be the third Tuesday, same place. If you don't know, you can find us as we're talking about social media and all that stuff. You can find us on Facebook. We do have a Facebook, Club E or Club Entrepreneur Duluth. If you like that, you'll get all the updates to the latest events. You can also check us out on clube.com. It'll have all the events that we are going to be having going forward. The next merger and acquisitions panel that we have going on is going to be another great panel, and we're excited for it. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming, and we'll see you next time.